Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Christina, and today we're going to be talking about the astrological significance of Venus. What the planet represents, the energies associated with Venus, as well as the significance of the Venus placement within your own birth chart. I'm going to be using this beautiful book, The Secret Language of Astrology by Roy Gillett. The Illustrated Key to Unlocking the Secrets of the Stars. I think I got this book, must have been a couple of years ago. I think it was in the Barnes & Noble bargain section, I'm pretty sure. And I was so drawn to it because I have lots of astrology books, but this one in particular I was really attracted to because, as you can see by the cover and just by like a brief flip through the book, it has absolutely gorgeous illustrations of all the concepts, all the planets, and their symbols, their mythologies, their history. I mean, it's just great. And so today I wanted to talk about the planet Venus, and it has a lovely section on each planet, and we're going to go through the Venus section today. So something else I really love about this book in particular is that it talks about the ancient origins of astrology, the history of astrology, from ancient Babylon and Egypt to the Greco-Roman world, Indian astrology, and it really just goes through the historical significance of astrology, you know, everything from its inception to its rejection and dismissal and its revival, which I think is really, really important for anyone who's interested in astrology to understand, because, you know, astrology and astronomy in the past were not separate disciplines. And I do think that's an important detail for anyone who's coming to astrology to know, because the people of the ancient past were quite skilled at the tracking of celestial bodies, and it was one of their primary concerns was watching the sky, knowing when certain cosmic events were going to happen. And one can look at this in a metaphysical, spiritual way, but one can also look at this in a very naturalistic way, because noting the consistent movement of the planets would also tell you about the seasons, you know, and what to expect and plan for, which are patterns that would have been noticed by people for generations. So I do think that that's an important detail to always remember when you come to astrology, that kind of can imbue a new kind of respect for the craft and a respect for the incredibly intricate worldview that our ancestors had, and the way that they used and how we use the natural world, and how we assign meaning to that world, and how we assign internal emotional processes to the objective, observable universe. I think that that's something really, really interesting and special, not to be dismissed and ridiculed, but to be looked at with curiosity and awe, for me. So, I think at the very least, astrology says something incredibly profound about the way that humans interact with their environment and the way that they see themselves within nature, within the cosmic order. And I think that that is really beautiful. So yes, in this book, the section that I'm reading from is Getting to Know the Planets, and it goes planet by planet, starting from the sun and working its way out to Pluto. Still considered a planet within the context of astrology. We're not going to start with the sun today. I might get to the sun in another video, but this video we're talking about Venus. I just love this book. Of course, I've got a Botticelli over here. Okay, so just so much good information. Okay, so Venus, the goddess of love. So Venus dictates the energy of pleasure and how we love. So, for example, my Venus is in Pisces, and so the attributes of Pisces is what I am attracted to, but also how I express love. Okay, here we go. Venus symbolizes all that is beautiful, graceful, charming, and tasteful. She enriches our senses with delightful flavors, smells, sights, sounds, and sensations. Her creativity urges us to value and accumulate objects, ideas, and experiences. Yet, the planet also has a darker side. Its irresistible charm can entice and seduce, and so poison our happiness. Our need to have, to possess, may become so intense that it is impossible for us to let go. When this happens, contentment is impossible. Only in letting go, in appreciating and knowing without grasping and needing to have, can we find true, lasting happiness. This ambiguity is reflected in the myths surrounding the goddess with whom the planet is identified. Known to the Greeks as Aphrodite, born of foam, because she was born of sea foam, the goddess of love and beauty was the oldest of the Olympian gods and emerged from the foaming blood and semen of the castrated god Uranus at the point where his severed genitals fell into the sea. She married Hephaestus, Vulcan, craftsman of the gods, but had many affairs with other gods, notably Ares or Mars, as well as with mortals such as Adonis, who was slain by the jealous Ares in the guise of a boar. The mother of Eros, the goddess of sexual love, or the Roman Cupid, and Harmonia, or harmony, but also of Deimos, fear, and Phobos, panic, Aphrodite personifies the mix of delight and destructiveness, of harmony and conflict that can arise from beauty, love, and desire. When Paris, a prince of Troy, was asked to name the fairest goddess, he chose Aphrodite after she promised him Helen of Sparta, the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris's choice earned Troy the enmity of Athene and Artemis, and his kidnap of Helen from her husband led to the war that destroyed Troy. Claiming descent from Venus and the Trojan Aeneas, Julius Caesar and his heir Augustus adopted the goddess as their family protector, acknowledging that she provided not only beauty of form, but also the material wealth that enabled successful enterprise. A similar tradition surrounds the Indian goddess Lakshmi. Venus Aphrodite was identified with the Egyptian goddess Isis, daughter of the earth god Geb and the sky goddess Nut, and mother of the solar god Horus. Mistress of nature and magic, Isis was revered by pharaohs and common folk alike. In Babylon, as the goddess Ishtar, who braved and survived the underworld, the planet controlled fertility, love, war, sex, and sacred prostitution. In contrast to the Old World, Central American civilizations traditionally saw Venus as male and often malign. Aztecs viewed Tlahuizcalpantecuhtli, the god of the planet Venus, as a morning star, as a dangerous and malevolent deity who shot self-destructive darts and arrows. Mayan astrologers tracked Venus's 584-day heliacal cycle from the moment when, as a morning star, it first became visible above the eastern horizon just before sunrise. Mayan wars could be timed to coincide with the stages of this cycle. And of course, here we have Botticelli's Venus, Birth of a Goddess. Botticelli's famous depiction of Venus shows the goddess emerging, beautiful and fully grown from the foaming sea, as did her Greek equivalent Aphrodite, whose name means born of foam. Okay, so we also have this list of information I'm going to read. So the Venus's number is the number 6. The day of Venus is Friday. Her color, the Venus's color is green. It rules the throat and kidneys. It's associated with the metal copper, which makes sense. The alchemical symbol for the feminine is copper, which makes sense because Venus associated with the feminine and divine love. Venus's stone is emerald, and the herbs and incense associated with Venus are strawberry and raspberry, and the plant associated with Venus is the rose. And this rose symbolism is going to become very, very important as we continue exploring the concept of the sacred feminine. Because, as you might notice, many images of the goddess have survived throughout history despite their desecration and literal demonization. For example, I just happen to have this here, is this picture of the Virgin Mary, who, Our Lady in Heaven, Queen of Heaven, all of these titles, Our Lady of Victory, all of these titles that are associated with Mary were former titles for Inanna, Ishtar, who all represented the planet Venus. And the rose symbolism that Mary is very often pictured with is a remnant of the pagan veneration of the rose symbol as a Ionic symbol. Ionic, phallic. Ionic is the feminine, female version. And this rose was always so it's associated with Venus. And often in Gothic cathedrals, for example, you'll have a rose window, which is also a nod to the veneration of Venus. That was very common back in the day, and it's usually opposite of the cross. And so you have the rose and the cross, you've got the yoni and the phallus, and the Rosicrucians, those of the rosy cross, they have combined these symbols to represent a merging of opposites, which many religions teach as the goal of enlightenment, the goal of spiritual devotion is to integrate your shadow, merge opposites, because opposites aren't really opposites, they're the same in nature, just different in degree. And so, where was I going with this? Yeah, the rose. Oh, because in the book, we have a picture of the rose associated with the planet Venus. Similar to the rosy cross of the Rosicrucians, you've got the Yin and Yang, the Star of David, which is a combination of a upward-facing triangle and a downward-facing triangle, which represents water and fire, or feminine, masculine. There are a bunch of religious symbols that represent the merging of opposites, and you can look at that as, it doesn't just have to be like literal, male and female, because it's so beyond that. It's so much more than that. It's the merging of the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. It's a merging of your shadow self with your conscious self. I guess that's sort of similar, but it's bringing together dualities. It's unifying dualities. It's gaining unity consciousness and realizing that dualities aren't different at all. They're the same, but different in degree, like temperature. And a lot of people think that all the prophets have been saying that you can gain eternal life or enlightenment by gaining unity consciousness and taking things as a part of you. Anyways, Unity consciousness, yes. So like, this also reminds me of in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus says, when you make the upper like the lower and the lower like the upper, and he like, I can't remember the exact quote, but he goes through like a list of opposites, and he's like, when you make the opposites one, then you will enter the kingdom of heaven. But I think what that means is that when you see beyond duality, beyond the tree of good and evil, which would be like the tree of duality, in favor of the tree of life, the tree of unity, consciousness, then you enter a state of enlightenment where time doesn't exist. And you are deathless, because you realize that death is just a part of the cycle. I'm going to read this section that says, the geocentric path of Venus, the path of beauty. This diagram shows the path of Venus seen over exactly 8 years, during which time it makes 5 loops caused by apparent retrograde motion owing to the different speed of its solar orbit. Okay, so I did mention this in another video, that it was discovered that Venus makes a pentagram shaped orbit every 8 years from the geocentric perspective. It makes a pentagram path around the earth. And if the ancients were, tracking this and recording this, which we know they were, and if we know that, the path that Venus takes in the sky can indicate like the changing of seasons, and thus, creativity and fertility and life, etc., then it makes sense that it would become associated with feminine principle, the creative principle, and beauty and love and all of those wonderful things. So I'm going to just show this picture again because I think it's important. Okay, so there's the geocentric path, which is very similar to the shape of the rose, and I think the divine proportion, phi, P-H-I, there's something about the rose and like this shape of the sunflower seed and the nautilus shell, Fibonacci sequence, it's all related to the divine proportion, which is 1.618. It's either 1.618 or 1.816. I get them mixed up. I'm not sure exactly, but it's one of those. And it dictates the shape of nature, the form, the mathematical harmony that is seen all throughout nature. Okay, so the symmetry of the geocentric orbit is strikingly akin to that of a rose, which shows how the planet's movement touches our consciousness with a subtle physical experience of beauty. Yet, modern space exploration has discovered the crushingly heavy, poisonous atmosphere of Venus. Taken together, ancient and modern perspectives instruct us that beauty may be best experienced when we maintain a degree of detachment. Oh my. Wow. I'm telling you, this book is great. Wow. Yes, so with all that information in mind, you can look at the role that your Venus placement plays in your life. You can literally Google, like, well, you can get your birth chart. You can generate a birth chart. There's like tons of websites online where you can generate a birth chart and see what your Venus placement is. All you need is your date of birth, time of birth, and location of birth, and it'll generate your birth chart, show you all your placements, and see what role or what flavor of love and beauty your life has, and what flavor of love and beauty that you're attracted to, and all that fun stuff. Yes, so that's Venus. Okay, maybe I'll conclude with this lovely statue of the Virgin Mary, who we know is inspired by the goddesses associated with Venus. She has this burning heart here. Burning heart. Isis was also associated with the planet Venus, and many Christian churches today that are dedicated to Our Lady of Victory, or Mary, sit on top of former temples to Isis. Especially in the Greco-Roman world, you see this a lot, that temples to Isis were replaced by temples honoring Mary. And Mariolatry, or the veneration of Mary, is very, very big in Catholicism. And yes, anyways, so thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.